With the weight.
But I'm talking about the real estate market. The real estate market is such that there has been an intrinsic value increase in the actual appreciation of the land value in Chicago and nationwide, because the land became more sacred with the pandemic, right? My backyard, I'm back there. I'm gardening. I grew cantaloupes this year. I got on the internet and found out we got a real good cantaloupe seed in, and we dried it out, and kid loved it, and I planted it. You plant it right along the fence line, and it kind of grabs onto the fence. I didn't even know it. We grew cantaloupes. You got to start early because they have a longer period to go, and they got to be done before it gets cold. But you can grow those, and we were growing in the garden. I had all kind of rose bushes and roses things growing. And I got my fire pit and big pile of wood. The value of the land has increased with the onset of the pandemic. And that space in your backyard is just more sacred. And I don't know if that comes back. Yeah, the house market has been going crazy. One of the agents at our office submitted an offer on a property, $110,000 over the list price, and lost the deal. Right? He wasn't the highest offer. And that leads you to say, oh, wow, is the market going to come crashing down? I don't know. It was a nice property. It was in Naperville. Like, it's a lot of factors at play there. I never saw the property. And it was a line of people waiting to get into the open house. That should give you an idea of something that's happening, right? So we want to keep that in mind. And we don't want to be the guys that's out here delivering news like we know something that's going to happen. This market, there are some headwinds coming at us as property owners, as people in this profession. There's we know the pandemic that's caused a big budget shortage. The way out of that is going to be some property taxes increases, right? The mayor has already said before the pandemic or during the pandemic, raised for a property taxing. They had a $800,000 deficit, to $800 million deficit to fill. Actually, deficit was bigger than that, but I think that they were going easy on us to say, hey, we're gonna have to increase property taxes by $800,000, $800 billion, just say $1 billion, in order to deal with that shortfall. And that's before all of this happened. And then we got operating expenses increasing. As far as property owners are concerned, it's a lot harder to manage your properties. Your tenants were out. They were moving around the city. Oh, we got Jerry Brown on the call, so we're going to get some property tax information in this call. And we got Willie on this call too. This is going to be an exciting call. Willie knows he's one of the inspectors that I use for a lot of these multifamily buildings. He was, and Jerry's one of the guys that I go to when I have questions in regards to property taxes and where are these taxes going. I got a property right now. It's reverse. The assessed value is $8 million. The owner hasn't been appealing the taxes. We're selling the property for $2.5 million. What happens? The seller's attorney, the buyer's attorney is adamant. They want 110% tax increase in the sales contract. The seller's attorney is like, no, I as a principal, I'll never give more than 105. And I'm trying to figure out, like, and a lot of times when you're doing this, I'm the broker in the middle of the transaction. I have to ask, okay, it's $1 million deal or $500,000 deal. What is the difference between 105% and 110%? And sometimes it's like 200, like the last time I did it was $261 on $1 million transaction. And I had to stop and ask the attorneys, are we really, right? Drawing lines in the sand for $261. If we are, I will donate $261 at closing to the buyer and the seller. How about that? So that we can move past this issue. I think sometimes we over-broker these deals, and sometimes the attorneys over-lawyer these deals. And it's for us to come in and really work in the nuance, in the gray area, to kind of pull people back to the center so that we can get the deals moving forward. Before I go, but let me get back to, so last year, nationwide, there was an 11%, first time in history, in a long time, that collectively, 11% appreciation. 11% appreciation. We're seeing the same thing in Chicago, right? My lender sending me all kind of letters. Hey, you know, you got a lot of equity over there. And, well, why you didn't tell me that when I was trying to get my mortgage insurance? I had to go through all these chances to get the MI off my deal, right? And I knew that a year ago, you know. But now there's been an intrinsic value increase in the property value. So I want Jerry, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do, how long you've been doing it, and what you're seeing out there as far as Chicago and the property taxes?
Sure. Thanks for the introduction. It's great to see you again, Tony. We haven't seen much of each other since the COVID shutdown. I'm Jerry Brown. I'm with Siegel and Callahan. We do property tax appeals. So in addition to property appealing assessments at the assessor, the Board of Review, State Property Tax Appeal Board, and Circuit Court, we also do incentive class applications. For multifamily building, the relevant incentive there would be Class 9. What we're focusing a lot on is what's expected to happen in 2021 with the reassessment of Chicago. As you probably all know, Cook County works on a triennial assessment basis. 1/3 of the county is reassessed every year. So at the beginning in 2019 of Kagi's administration, they reassessed all of the northern suburbs. 2020, they reassessed the western and southern suburbs. 2021, everything in Chicago gets reassessed. And the patterns that we've seen so far, and I think the assessor's indicated that he plans to continue them, is some downward adjustment for assessments for single family homes and smaller multifamily buildings, but with significant increases for commercial buildings and larger multifamily buildings. I think the data for the 2019 reassessment saw average increases among the larger buildings of about 77%, and that was reduced down to like 27% at the Board of Review, with relatively few reductions at the assessor. In the south suburbs, the increases came up to about an average of like 50% for those buildings. The Board of Review is still in session. It's going to be for another 2 months, so we don't have the data as to how much that was pared down at the Board of Review. So I would expect that you're going to see something, at least in terms of the initial assessment for the larger multifamily buildings, 50% or more, and some cases substantially more, because the assessor thinks that a lot of the larger buildings have just been chronically underassessed in the previous administration, and he's, in his view, righting the ship by pushing those numbers far up. And I understand there's some real tension between the assessor and the Board of Review, because the Board of Review has been, as I indicated, pushing those numbers down considerably in many cases. And one interesting indication as to how much some parties disagree with some of the initial assessments, we have a number of cases where school districts are intervening, arguing for lower assessments, essentially arguing with us to get the assessment reduced. And the reason that they do that is, if you end up with us going to either the State Property Tax Appeal Board or Circuit Court, and we win there, these school districts end up having to pay refunds out of that year's operating expenses. So it's money that just gets taken out of their budget for that year with no way to make it up. So to avoid that kind of volatility and uncertainty in their budgeting for years coming out, they want to get a reliable number now, rather than seeing the numbers high now, but then having to pay a refund down the road. So they, and obviously they want to get as much tax revenue as possible. So the fact that they are intervening, asking for lower assessments, I think is a pretty good indication that the numbers are in many cases much higher than they're supposed to be.
You know, that's interesting, Jerry. I heard that some of the municipalities are concerned about overassessment because they're afraid, hey, if we collect this money, we're going to spend it. We got a lot of stuff to spend money on as far as, you know, city of Dalton, city of, you know, Cal Park, wherever, and Evanston and what have you. And then 2 years later, these guys are going to they're going to win this appeal at the appeal board, the state appeal board, and we're going to have to give money back, and we're not going to have it.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So that's why they intervene, so that even if the assessment is, say, $1 million now, where we're arguing it should really be $500,000, the intervener, if they really think that $500,000 really is what the number would be, and they think that we would win if we went to the property tax appeal board, they'd rather see the lower number now and have certainty rather than seeing an elevated number now and then having to pay a refund 2 or 3 years down the road out of that year's budget. Because they have no way, once the demand for the refund is placed, they have no way to replenish those funds within that year.
Awesome. So I think last time I saw you was right before the pandemic at the 100 Black Men, or one of those big, maybe it was the Chicago Bar Association conference gala. And I met one of your colleagues actually on the calendar to come in and talk to the multifamily investment advisors in depth about property taxes. I'll make sure to include you on those emails.
Oh, please do.
And Ty, I was like, hey, you're from Siegel County. Jerry's my guy, right? He's like, I can't do that. He's like, no, actually, I met you with Jerry. We work together all the time. Da, 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 da. So they're going to come in and take us down with one of the title companies so that we can talk about how how we can talk more intelligently and help our buyers and sellers make more informed decisions as they're getting in. We're one of the groups that when we do a pro forma analysis on the property, and if we see the assessed value is here and we're selling it here, we'll put in there, hey, you can anticipate some exposure, I'll say, in regards to a property tax increase. And we don't want you to get, you know, a year in thinking, hey, I bought this deal at a great return, and then your taxes increase. We rather have that conversation with you now so you can build it into your pro forma. Maybe it's not going to happen immediately, but over the next 10 years, over the next 5 years, let's anticipate some adjustments there so that you can make the most informed decision coming in. And it's helpful because with a lot of our clients, we hit what I call our home runs, right? We get the property back on the back end 3 years, 5 years later when they decide to sell it. And we try to be involved with them every step of the way. And we don't want to be in a situation where, hey, our property taxes, you know, I just got $70,000 increase here, and you know, I'm really not happy with this purchase. So
yeah, the volatility is interesting, and isn't it? Some of the surrounding counties, they're actually using Cook County's volatility as a selling point. Because, for example, in DuPage, you just have very, gradual increases in the assessments from year to year, whereas in Cook County, you have this dramatic fluctuation. And I've seen in the marketing materials for, assets in DuPage and Lake County, where part of what they actually highlight is the predictability and stability of the property tax regime there as compared to Cook County. And in advising clients who are looking to buy things, what I typically, in fact, we always look at is, even though the assessor has changed, the underlying law has not. And at the end of the day, we should be able to get you back really close to where you really should be, looking at your income and expense data. How is the property actually performing financially? And, it obviously you'd rather get the assessment right on the front end rather than having to appeal through a couple of years to finally get it back where it should be, even through refunds. But we it was when we advising people, yeah, we're looking at the income and expenses and what's going on with the cap rates. That's the best guide for indicating where the property should end up after the appeals process.
Yeah, the volatility. Yeah, I've seen it where you got three Six Flags within, pretty close by, and taxes are all over the place on the three of them. And I know there has been some concerns about the recent reassessment of Evanston and some other places where they just feel like they got punched in the face as far as that's concerned. And we're bracing for it here, and we're looking at that as to impact our operating expenses in 2022 in Cook County and the city of Chicago. And already property taxes are probably one of the highest line items on our expense reports. One of the other high line items on the expense report is the water bill. Years ago in Chicago, the gas bill was your lead. Now the water bill and the gas bill are practically the same. We've seen a lot of increases there, and just these headwinds that are coming at property owners. But at the end of the day, I believe that the positive is outweighing the negative. And when we're taking a look at these portfolios and doing the analysis on some of them for owners, after all of that is concerned, after we go through all the negatives and all of the things, your expenses are going up because your tenants are home more and some of those things, the positive outweighs the negative when it comes to the city of Chicago. Vince, I think, is prepared to give us a little bit of information on the city of Chicago and some of the metrics and some of the things that still, regardless to what's happening over here, what's happening over there, still makes this a solid investment. And some of the things that we miss all the time when we get one metric or one news item and we say, oh, look at that, the population is shrinking. Wait a minute. At the end of the day, we're still the third largest city. And the next largest city, I think, is Houston. A long way away. We're still going to be the third largest city because we lost 7,000 to 8,000 people, right? Our net, it's not gonna. Vince, tell us something good. What's going on?
Well, you keyed in on a few points that do drive, a more grim outlook with regards to population decline, which 8 years straight we've seen consistently. We have. You'll see some people taking a perspective on crime reports, effectively the tax assessment, which Jerry came in and gave us some valuable insight on. Thank you for that. School systems, being the, kind of controversial sometimes, and those being the primary drivers for Gen X home buyers is the security of school systems. But we're also seeing Chicago still maintaining, quite frankly, a 50% renter population, which is extremely high for a metro area of this kind of volume. We have 36 companies that are headquartered in the Chicago metro area in the MSC, which is very high. Chicago, in comparison to similar GDP cities, has a very relatively low average home sale price, with LA being at 500,000, New York being at 1 million. Chicago, according to a metric taken in February, was at 305,000. So there's a lot of room for growth for our investors, and there's more meat on the bone than other metro areas, still maintaining the third largest GDP. We have a forecast recently that was given stating that we're expected to see our all-time high price per unit in Chicago sometime in 2022. So recovery with regards to the pandemic is afoot. We definitely have some developments that my colleague Jason might be able to share at some point in the presentation. But among those, the primary of which is the Obama Library, the storied development going on around Jackson Park, set to break ground here in 2021 with the federal review being completed in December. So we definitely have sunny skies ahead, as the factors would show us. Obviously, none of us are psychics, but with the factors we have at hand, Chicago looks to not be on the decline, but actually be on the incline. I actually just read about a development coming around the Chicago River with 10,000 homes and 62 acres of land being developed by the Discovery Partners with University of Illinois. So there's institutional investment, there's independent investment, and Chicago maintains to be a hub for investors with a lot of meat on the bone and room for growth.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that, Vince, that insight. Before we get to Jason, I wanted, one of the primary drivers for apartment owners is employment and population. And when you look at the population, there's basically 300,000 people within 5 miles of any multifamily property in this city. That's a bigger population than a lot of the cities that are growing in population every year. And that's just one of our 77 neighborhoods, if you're looking at it. And yeah, you can buy a house here for 300,000, you can buy a house for $1 million, you can buy a house for 150,000. And that's one of the things that continues to attract investors into our city. Also, our pipelines coming out of our university. You got fresh talent coming out of Northwestern, coming out of Kellogg, coming out of University of Chicago, coming DePaul, Loyola, Kent. Oh, is it Kent? Is Kent here? I don't know. But there's a lot of schools in this MSC, University of Illinois, University of Chicago, Chicago State, all of the IIT, Columbia College. This fresh talent pool is a pipeline for these employers to get this talent when it's fresh, when it's new and cheap, right? You come out of college, you ain't got to pay me that much, right? But I got the best mind because I just read the 2020 textbook, right? I just looked at I just studied the current events. So it's a trade-off. And that's one of the things that's a driver. That's why they keep coming. And then that's the Fortune 500 companies that are headquartered here. And then you look at companies like Boeing and these other companies that have second headquarters here. All of them have major offices here. It's for a reason, right? So we're going to continue to get investment. There's guys that are like, oh, I'm leaving because the property taxes went up. Oh, I'm leaving because the mayor said this. All right, for everyone that leaves, we got somebody coming in our network that's trying to get in because they see the opportunity in this marketplace. And that's one of the advantages of being with a firm like Keller Williams, where it's the largest real estate company in the United States. We're closing about $1 billion a day in transactions. Why do I say that? Because I want to be like King Kong and whatever the movie's coming out. No, I'm not beating my chest with that. A large number of those deals that are being done, the money is being recycled. We're dealing with preservation and wealth clients that are putting those dollars back through 1031 exchange into the marketplace so that they can reinvest those dollars, right? So if I can save 20 to 30% on $1 million that I just made on the closing by doing a 1031 exchange, I don't have to pay the government that's $200,000. I can afford to pay 5 or 10% above market. I'm still saving 10 to 20% on the deal. And that's why we're able to get these deals done like this. We are the only company. We have commercial brokers in 600.
Tony, I think you might have froze. I'm not certain if you can hear us.
I think we're having some reception problems.
It's CBRE, okay, but they aren't even close. We're like $200 billion over that. Year 2020, Keller Williams commercial closed $407 billion. Keller Williams closed $407 billion. The magnitude of that, $1 billion a day. I saw some company, local company advertising. We just had our 10-year anniversary. And in 10 years, we closed $1 billion. Like we closed that yesterday, right? Before I go to Jason, Willie is, can you turn your microphone on, Willie? Tell us a little bit about your background, Willie Geronimo, about your background and some of the stuff that you're seeing out there in the marketplace. I think you're still muted. Willie is an inspector that I've used over the years. He started off first, ran into Willie. He was doing inspections for the banks. Some of the banks want to walk through the properties before they lend the money. And the bank was, and I'm thinking, the lenders coming out to look at the property. Some lenders, the vice president or the president will come out and walk through the property just to kind of, you know, make appearance. They were sending Willie, and I'm like, who is this guy? He's like looking under the hood of the properties. He put in one of my properties. He said, Tony, look at this. He took a marble and put it on the floor, and it rolled off. You know, I was like, there's an issue here, Tony. I need to see more units. But at the end of the day, we got the deal over the finish line. It wasn't as bad as we thought. It was just a little deflection in the flooring. And he didn't kill the deal, but he did raise a valid concern. And tell us a little bit about what you're seeing out there. Are you still doing inspections? Is a pandemic? What's going on, Willie?
Oh yeah. Hi everybody. I'm Willie Germino. Yeah, like Tony told you about me. We've been I know Tony more than 20 years. When I started doing inspections since 1996. I was inspector of Chicago for 11 years. And then when I met Tony, because since then I've been doing inspection. I think when I met Tony, he was the seller agent. And then since then, and you know, I don't know, he likes me or he was upset to me, but he called me for the next inspection for his buyer. So anyway, I was inspector of Chicago for 11 years, 13 years for bank inspector. And then I'm still doing inspections since then, 96 up to present. And this pandemic, I am terribly busy. I thought it will be dead. My business will be dead, but it's not. It's different. I'm doing 30 plus inspection a month. I'm terribly busy. I'm tired of, you know, I'm doing property inspection, small condo, houses, and commercial. And most of my commercial inspection is there in Chicago because, you know, most of the investor wants me to do the inspection on a multi-unit building because they know me doing all of those for a long time. See, like Mo Bennett is using me for a long time to doing inspection. So it's about it. So a lot of other estate investors are doing investing here. So they are calling me that I don't know them, but referred by other real estate agent. So I was surprised. Yeah, like I said, I thought pandemic is a dead business, but it's not. Plus the Obama library that you mentioned, because they're breaking down. So a lot of people are looking property in the area of Woodlawn area, Brownsville area. Yeah, that's a hot area now. So that's about it.
Thanks, Willie, for that. Definitely one of the guys in our toolbox that we regularly go to when we have an out-of-state investor or buyer looking to buy a property and they need an inspector that's going to give them an honest assessment, not going to charge them, you know, so many dollars that they're going to be looking for a reason to bring the price down. And I'm telling them, you know, what's wrong with the property, but more importantly, what's right with the property. I know when I buy properties, I want my inspector to tell me, okay, look, this is fine now, but it's approaching the end of its economic life. You're probably going to need to replace this roof over the next 5 or 6 years, even though it's fine now. This furnace is 10 years old, or this hot water heater is 8 years old. So don't be surprised in the next 3 or 4 years it starts to get tired. That kind of stuff is valuable.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things we're looking at. We try to keep these meetings brief. We'll come back every Monday. But before we go, I want Mo, give us one deal, Mo, that sticks out to you. That's that somebody that's trying to get into this market. Maybe somebody starting off in investing and they want to buy their first small property. Do we have a property like that somebody can get in for under $1 million or under $500,000 in our inventory?
Sure, Tony. Yes, we actually do. Today, the Multifamily Investment Advisors is pleased to present 12501 South Ashland Avenue. It's a 6-unit apartment building, investment opportunity located in the Calumet Park neighborhood. And this asset is consisting of 6 apartments. It has been well maintained over the years, and the unit mix is 5 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartments and 1 1-bed, 1-bath. The property has been benefited from many capital improvements over the years, including a newer boiler and upgrades in the units. This offering will give the investor the opportunity to acquire a well-maintained, fully occupied asset and receive risk-adjusted returns from day one. We're asking $385,000 for the property, and that's about what the current rents is like 8.25 cap.
8.25 cap. Wow, that's fantastic. Asking on current numbers. This ain't pie in the sky. Next year, if you do this and the plannings line up and you increase your rents and you 8.25 cap. Are you kidding me?
Yes.
$385,000. Thanks for that, Mo. Thanks for that, guy. Thanks for tuning in to Multifamily Monday Update with the Multifamily Investment Advisors over at Keller Williams One Chicago. We appreciate you checking us out, and we look forward to seeing you again next week.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you.